Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. This is the second video that I'm putting out. This one's about the sort of more advanced streaming. So last time we looked at all things Facebook Live. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at some of the stuff to make your live streams go to the next level. The next level of professionalism, whether that be with, we're going to look at things that are completely free options, just using a piece of software called Open Broadcaster software, and then we're going to look at what hardware you can put with that, including cameras, microphones, control systems, including things like the ATEM Mini Pro, and we're going to look at what levels you can do with that and what you can achieve with that. And so hopefully what we can do, for those of you who are feeling confident with what they're doing and just want to take it up to the next level, this tutorial will help you understand things like stream keys and software control and what words like ATEM and OBS mean and what they can do for you. So I hope you enjoy this. If you do need any help, my contact details will be available at the end of this video, and I'll give you a little outro, so I'll see you then. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this piece of software called Open Broadcaster software. Now what this can do is take multiple inputs and stream it directly out to whatever service you're after. So what we're going to first do is have a look at the settings. Now I'm using a Mac, so you go into Preferences, and you've got a number of options in front of you. Now most of the standard ones are what you're after here on the general settings. These are just to do with sort of how you use the software and your interface that you've got. The stream settings are where you're sending it to. So we're going to use YouTube on this example. YouTube runs two servers. You've got a primary and a backup. So if you've got something like a TriCaster server, that will use a primary and a backup so that you've got two options. But in most cases, we just want the primary. Now the stream key, what this does is it takes your broadcast and sends over to YouTube servers and says, I'm looking for this thing, and it confirms that you're sending the data. So this is unique to your stream or your channel, depending on your setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a stream quickly on YouTube. Really, really easy to do. So you go to Go Live in this situation, and then you're met with YouTube Studio. It'll give you a number of options when it loads, and you can schedule a stream. Now you'll create a new in this situation, and you'll call it, maybe for this one we're going to call it OBS test, and for this one we only want it to be private because only I'm going to be paying attention to it. Set the time you want, say no, it's not made for kids, or yes if it is, and be aware of what that entails, and you can upload your custom thumbnail. So I'll then say yep, that's what we're after, and so we go to OBS test. Now this is what you're met with, and it's a connect streaming software if that's how you want to do it, and you've got a stream key. So you copy this. If you go back into OBS and we input this stream key and click OK. Now when I say start streaming here and we go into our browser, you'll see it's got an excellent connection. That means it's seeing what it's supposed to see from the streaming software. And any moment now, our image will appear on screen. And you can see that that's what I'm sending it from OBS. And we now have the option up top to go live. We can also share this. So if we want to share the link, we can do so. And that is basically how you get OBS to stream in a sort of the long and short of it, really. So we then click stop streaming. So we carry on with the settings for OBS. Output mode, simple, is the easiest way to go. If you're doing a 1080p stream, so HD, a 6000 kbps or 6 megabits per second is perfectly good rate. If you're doing 720p, generally say about 4 megabits per second. Encoder of X264 is fine. Audio bitrate, I use 192 because that is the maximum that YouTube allows. Recording path, so if you record something in OBS, which we'll look at in a moment, what we can do is you can just choose where that goes. Same quality as the stream, which is what you're after. MKV is a fine format. You can also use MP4, which is the sort of most common one. And there you go. Audio settings. You'd normally use 48 kilohertz, but 44.1 is, equally appropriate in this situation. You generally use stereo and mono channels. It depends sort of how you're doing it, but I generally keep it in stereo. Desktop, these are the feeds directly from your computer, but we're not going to look at those because I've got two devices connected. I've got a BlackMagic Design, which is my little ATEM, and I have a Scarlett 2i2 USB. Now what this is an audio interface. Now what this does is it takes your microphone inputs or a sound desk feed and feeds it via USB directly into your computer. And it can give you a much clearer sound. And you can see what I've got settings wise for the rest of it. You shouldn't necessarily need to worry too much about those. Video wise, I use 1080p, aspect ratio 16:9, just the standard to go by, and I'm using 50 FPS. Now, OBS itself. So let's have a look at the features it's got. We've got a start recording feature, exactly as I mentioned. You can sort of cut between what you're wanting to do. So cut that in, and then cut that in, and then we go back to the holding slide. And then I'll stop recording. And we'll see what that looks like. So the way you set OBS up is you have scenes, which are different things you're after, and then you have your sources. So for my holding scene, this is just what I want generally on screen when I'm working out what to come next or when people are waiting to come on. And I've got that ready to go. So what that is just a slide I've saved as a JPEG, and it tells you advanced streaming for your church by AJ Mills. Now if I've got the ATEM feed, for example, now what this does is this connected, this is a little bit of hardware we'll come to later, but what this has got is one of the cameras attached. Hello. We've got that camera attached. And for this feed, for this scene specifically, I just want that feed with no audio, but I can easily add my audio input capture, ATEM audio, and I can tell it I want to capture that device. So on this context, I want that to be on only in this scene specifically. That may or may not be the case, but for me, I'm saying not in this case, but you can do that. If you want that specific camera audio to follow it, that's your option. And we've then got a capture card. We'll go through all the hardware at the end of this and hopefully get rid of all the jargon for you at the same time. Now the capture card has got the little GoPro connected to it. These are great for sort of wide shots. Again, I can add my audio input. If I wanted the GoPro audio, I can add that. And again, so I'll check my USB 3.0 audio, which is what that is. And then they're linked together, but we don't necessarily need that. And then I've also got a PowerPoint section running. So on my second monitor, what I've done is I've set up PowerPoint. We'll see if we can focus that right now. So if I click on PowerPoint there, I can show you what I've got running here. What this is just a testing pattern PowerPoint I've got happen to have lying around. And now what I've done for this is I've clicked display capture. We'll just put this as test. And I've told it what display I want it to call, 1 or 2, so but 0, which is the one I'm on at the minute, so you see it's a sort of infinity at the minute, or number 1, and then you can snap it to window or manual or however you want to do it. But you can have a play with this yourself, and we're going to get rid of that because it's. But what this allows you to do is if I wanted to add some text over the top, I could do exactly that. Test. Click OK. Select a font. This is a test. Click. You've got your sort of colours you can play with. Again, this is something worth playing around with. I click OK. I can then move it around. And then when I change scene, it's got that there, and I can hide individual parts if I want to. But you could. This is one of the things about these pieces of software is you really need to play around with them yourself. Hopefully this will give you a good overview of what you're after, and you can have a play and you can understand what's involved in it. You've then got your audio mixer. So I've got my ATEM feed, and you can see it's taking the audio from my camera, and you can see how it reacts to the voice. I've then also got an audio interface which currently got my microphone on it. Again, a bit quieter, but it's also producing that sound. And you can mute and unmute as you want to. One of the nicest ways to do something like this may be if you've got a camera set up. So if I've got, say, my capture card and I've got my GoPro, I don't necessarily want the audio from that GoPro. Again, I'll give you a little wave. So you don't necessarily want that audio because it might not be as nice. If you've got a sound desk, you can run a feed straight off that through an audio interface, which we'll have a look at, and then you can just take that feed, so you get just the microphones that you're getting in church, and so it can often be a clearer sound. But you may also want to be in a position where you want, say, what's known as audio follows video. So if you've got a few different cameras running from a couple of capture cards or something like that, what it does is you can then pair up the audio and the video like we showed earlier, and it will follow that with the scene. If not, you just take control of these. Now what we've got up here are our transitions. There's a cut, which is like that, as you can see. Fade, as it does what it says on the tin, and you can change the value of that. And fade to black, simple as. And we've had a look at streaming, and we've had a look at recording. Studio mode is just another way of looking at it. I generally keep it in this format so that I can see what's what. And then of course you've got your settings, which are like your preferences as we looked at earlier, and then you can close it off altogether. So hopefully that gives you an idea of OBS. And what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at some of the hardware involved. So one of the first things we'll look at hardware-wise is a capture card, which looks something like this. What this does is it has a HDMI input and a USB output. So what this does is this connects via USB to your computer and takes the HDMI signal from your camera. This allows it to act in the same way you'd select a webcam and capture, as you can see, capture card, the device. It's a really easy way to connect your camera to your computer. What this allows you to do is up the quality of your video by using a dedicated camera rather than something just like a phone. It'll give you better colours, better picture. It'll be much better in low light, and it means that you can up the standard of your streaming. One of the things to be aware of for a camera, you need what's called a clean HDMI out. What it basically means is that you can take a feed of your camera as it's on. This isn't something that every camera allows, but it's a really useful feature and is necessary for any streaming. So this capture card, this is just a basic one. It costs about £30. They're available on Amazon and pretty much any video retailer. You know, if you've got the budget, the Elgato Camlink 4K is just an exceptionally robust and all-round brilliant capture card. It costs around £130, but what that does is a really solid piece of kit, and you can really rely on it. It has really good audio and can capture, like I say, up to 4K 60 frames per second, which is more than you'll ever need. But that's not to say that something like this, £30, won't do the job. It will, just know its limitations. It will work especially well if you just use it for video and you take your audio feed from your sound desk. So the next bit of kit we're going to look at is called a Stream Deck. Now what this does is really clever piece of kit. It's an incredibly customizable, basically it's just a collection of 15 buttons. Which may sound really simple. However, that's basically what it is, but you can customize them to do so many different things. Now, what I've done in this situation is I've connected it as basically a little video switcher. So on it, I can select my scenes for OBS. I can tell it what to look to. I can turn my audio settings on and off. I can tell it to start streaming and start recording. But I can also do cut, fade, fade to black, next slide and previous slide on my PowerPoint. This is an incredibly powerful piece of kit. Don't just think it's for OBS and streaming. It also works with things, if you're ever doing audio things with something like QLab. It has native support for all of your software settings. You can run audio off it. You can run your applications off it. You can even now run Zoom meetings with it. It's a really powerful bit of kit. This one is a standard model. It's got 15 keys. It's about £150. You can also get the XL model, which I believe has 32 keys, and you can get the Mini model, which has 6 keys. You know, it's up to you. Again, this is something you'd have to have a look at your specific needs for. I think the 15 key one just quite nicely for most situations you'd need it if you're using OBS. You're never really going to have more than 2 camera inputs coming into one laptop, and then a PowerPoint setup, and then just a holding slide. But it's up to you. You may have more and may need more space. You may not need. You may only need 6 keys. It is entirely up to you and what you want to do with it. Now, finally, the last piece of hardware I can't actually physically hold to you right now because it's currently connected to the microphone that's doing this audio. So what it is an audio interface. Now, what this does is it takes I'm sure you're all aware of that 3-pin connector, often called, it's an XLR connector, connects microphones to sound desks. And what this does is it takes that microphone connector or that microphone input and connects it to your computer via USB. What this allows you to do is it takes feeds of microphones, of maybe sound desks, and feed it via USB into your computer. The reason for this is you get a much cleaner audio feed. You're not relying on camera microphones, which can often pick up people sat just in front gossiping, and you can get that much clearer audio sound. The one I'm using, which will be on screen now, is a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. Mine's a 2nd generation. It's a really nice bit of kit. The little knobs on it that say gain 0 to 10 there, your preamps, and the preamps on it are really nice. They make a really warm and lovely natural sound. It's also got phantom power, so if you're using any condenser mics that need phantom power, that's a really good feature of it. But you also, one like that now, because you've now got the 3rd generation out, they're about £160, but that you don't necessarily need one that is £160. There are ones that start at around £35. The Behringer ones, it's about understanding your needs in that situation. If you're taking a feed from a sound desk, you don't necessarily have the need for it to have a really nice big preamps like something like the Focusrite. You can get away with something smaller than that, like the Behringer one. Are you taking a mono feed? Are you taking just one cable out? Are you taking a stereo feed? Does it need to be left and right? And understanding that and what you need to do with it are things that you can have a look at to your individual needs. Again, this does require a little bit of research, but hopefully it can point you. What this will do is point you in the direction of what kind of equipment to look for. Now, in case you're wondering what cameras I'm using, just so you've got an idea, the camera I'm using at the minute is a Panasonic VX1 4K, so VX1 being the model, 4K being the resolution it can go up to. It's got a really strong and powerful zoom on it, quite a large sensor for such a small camera as well. It can take a microphone directly into it, not necessarily something you'd need if you're taking a sound desk feed. It's a really nice camera. It cost about £700, which, for a base 4K camera is pretty solid. You've got a number of options either side. The sort of entry Panasonic video camcorder, which has a clean HDMI out, is the H800. Costs about £300, but it will do the job for you quite nicely. It's got quite a powerful zoom on it. But then you can go up from there. The BlackMagic Pocket 4K camera is an absolutely exceptional camera with interchangeable lenses, clean HDMI out, does the job really nicely. That kind of thing you're looking at over £1,000 for, but they are really powerful bits of kit. And if you have that budget and you're looking to do this long term and engage with lots of people, then you maybe can justify it, and I really recommend it. The other camera I'm using, which is looks over my shoulder quite a lot, is a GoPro. I use this mainly for sort of wide shots. If you want to sit it on top of a balcony, it's quite a nice holding shot of the whole church. Or if you've got someone in a separate room that you just need to quickly cut to, or things like that. Use your sort of artistic. You've got a bit of artistic license with it. But what this has got, I'm using a GoPro Hero 5 Black. I got mine refurbished for about £125. New GoPros, the latest model is the Hero 8. That costs about £300. It depends on what you're trying to do with it. They're really useful bits of kit to have lying around. The other thing to be aware of is that your camera HDMI is not the same as your computer HDMI. Most cameras will have a micro HDMI out, and your computer will have sort of the regular HDMI size you're used to seeing. So making sure that you have appropriate cabling for that, you can get micro HDMI to normal HDMI length. But as well as that, you can also get little things like these. It's got micro HDMI at this end, and then a little socket for a HDMI normal size. And what this does is it literally just means you plug that into the camera and then run a HDMI with it. So now that we've had a look at OBS, we're now going to look at a piece of hardware that can really sort of revolutionise your streams, make your life easier, and reduce the stress that's put on your computers if you're doing it. Now it is the BlackMagic ATEM Mini Pro. Now what this is basically, it's a video switcher. So you can put multiple inputs, whether that's different cameras, laptops, audio feeds, or a mixture of all of them, and you can choose what you want on screen at any one time. It also has the facility to do picture-in-picture, so a little square. Say you wanted the main text on screen, but you also wanted the camera in the bottom corner, it has that facility. Text overlaying, so if you wanted to put the words to a prayer over the top of an image, it's got that facility. It can take a feed directly from your sound desk without the need for an audio interface. And it also has various transitions, it has recording facilities, and possibly most importantly, it has an encoder. Now what this does is it takes your audio and your video, puts it together and sends it directly to the streaming platform. It's got 3 major platforms built into it: YouTube, Facebook and Twitch. As I've been saying in this video, we've been using mainly YouTube as our example, but it also does Facebook Live like we covered previously. Twitch itself is more of a gaming platform and not necessarily one you're likely to normally get lots of engagement on, but you will know your target market better than I will. So we're going to have a look at the features of this. The piece of hardware itself costs around £700. It is a bit of an investment compared to some of the other things we've been talking about, but it can be really, really useful for you and your church, depending on what your requirements are. So let's have a look. And with what you can see on screen here is the ATEM control software. So your program feed is what is being broadcast there and then. So camera 2, camera 1, I've also got media player set up, and this is what's going live. Your preview is what's going on next. Now what you can see I've got up here, this screen just here, is my preview screen. Now this is my HDMI output on the ATEM Mini Pro, and what that does is it gives me the chance to see what's coming up and what I'm trying to do. So be aware that that is only a feature of the ATEM Mini Pro and not the standard ATEM Mini. I then also got the ability to do black, coloured screens and whatnot, so you can play around with those as you go. You've then got media. You can take still images from your computer, so I can take variations of my logo. You've then also got a number of audio feeds you can use. So what you've got is you've got the audio that comes directly from your cameras, camera 1, 2, 3, 4. You can set this with these are your preamps, so basically making sure that the level coming in is what you want it to do. You've then also got 2 mic inputs. Now these are on the back of your ATEM Mini Pro. What these do is these are mini jack inputs, and they can take a feed, say, from audio interface or a sound desk, and that is another way of audio controlling your audio. You've then got an equalizer. And what this can do is you can adjust the sound of what's coming in. You've also got compressors, gates, and expanders. You've then of course got your master control volume, and you use this as you would these faders as you would with a sound desk. You've also then got the option for audio follows video. So if camera 1 is selected and camera 2 is selected, audio follows video, and then I select camera 2, the audio jumps over to camera 2, but if I then select back to camera 1, it says, well, I'll go back to the audio from camera 1. But if you are just taking the video from your cameras and using the sound desk audio, you don't need to worry about the audio from these. But be aware, there are a couple of things to be aware of with this. Usually the audio data being transmitted from a sound desk or from an audio interface will process quicker than the video. Now that's to do with the packets of data. The data packets on a video are larger than that for audio because there's more data in video than there is in audio. So be aware of this. This will mean that your audio will come in quicker. So what you can do is you can delay it by up to 8 frames. And one of the best ways to match this is to have your microphone on, have the microphone on from a camera, and then you can sync that up. As well as the preview option with the preview monitor that I've got here, the main plus point of the ATEM Mini Pro versus the ATEM Mini itself is that it's got a built-in encoder that can stream directly to our platform. What we have is we're going to use YouTube, again, exactly the same as we did before. You'll see that this is still set up, ready to test. This uses 9 megabits per second, a bit more than we need, but if you've got a stable connection with lots of data, you don't have a reason to not do so. So if I click on air, this tells me that it's broadcasting and it's doing okay. And I go on to my streaming setup, excellent condition. And there you go. So this is an example of it broadcasting straight away, and you can see I can go live again. So we'll just stop that and click. There you go. You can't record your stream unless you have a different piece of software called different piece of hardware called a hyperdeck, so don't worry about that. Again, you can't capture your video, but just note if you're recording your stream to YouTube or Facebook, you can also collect it there. We covered how to do that on Facebook Live video, but with the YouTube Studio, it can go up as a YouTube video itself afterwards. You can capture stills though. This will just be an capture of the still that's the output. Again, saves to a given location, and you've got a time code generator. Now this can do time of day, or it can do it set from your start point of the stream, so you know how long it is. It's up to you on how you want to do it. Color generators, you start, you've got 2 colors as we showed before. Now you can choose these to be whatever you want, so a white, and maybe you've got RGB sliders here, so we'll put in the SanDisk Guy branding colors. There you go. What a lovely shade of blue, I'm sure you'll all agree. You've got your upstream key. You've got 4 different sections of you've got 4 different ways of doing it. The main 2 that I think are really useful are chroma and DVE. Chroma, what that does is it takes out a singular color. So what I've done is I've connected a PowerPoint, which is a purely green screen with some text in it. So if I've got my camera 1 and I, for the next one, want to overlay what's going on, I can click key 1, choose the sample, which is camera 3. So what I want it to do in this situation is I've selected camera 1 as my preview, and then I want to overlay camera 3, and I've keyed out that specific colour, which is this just green. It's just green, G value of 255, everything else is 0. And this has overlaid the text. Now this is just running in a PowerPoint. You'll see if I change the slide, it changes things altogether. This is from Martin Ferris's induction. I hope you're watching, Martin. Thank you for joining us. But you can see that's the situation. I then do my transition, do it auto, and then if I take the key off, you can see it. You can see just there. It stays where it is, but if I keep the key light on and when I transition it back, that's gone again. So I hope that makes sense to you. The other one you've got is DVE. What this is picture in picture. So an example of this, if I wanted to change to camera 2, which is the GoPro just here, but I also knew, you know what, I need people to know who's doing this stream just a little bit more. So I select my source, which is Media Player 1, and then I click key. You can see just in the top, there's a little, just in the top here, you'll see this as I'll go away. That's gone, and there you go, it's back. Now what this does is it's called a picture-in-picture function. I can move it around using the buttons on the ATEM, but I can also control it from this software here. You'll also notice from this, I'm not really touching the buttons on here a huge amount. You can do most of what you need to do in the ATEM control software. It's nice to have a computer just running that. It's more powerful than the buttons. There are a few things to note about the limitations of the ATEM Mini Pro. A few things to know about it. You can use it actually, so it treats it as a webcam. So if I was on OBS, you will have noticed earlier, one of the options I had for my cameras, there you go, ATEM feed. You'll notice here, on the device, it says BlackMagic Design. What this does is it means it acts as a webcam. This means that you can use it in situations, say you were hosting a Zoom meeting or a webinar. You can select it as your webcam rather than just the camera on your computer. So if you're looking to broadcast over Zoom, that can possibly improve your quality. Just be sure to make sure the resolution is what you want it to be. But if you are looking to record what's coming out of the ATEM, you can't do so while also having it act as a webcam. It's got a USB-C out, which is a really good feature, but you connect, say, a hard drive directly to it, and you can record directly to that, but you can't do that while also having it act as a webcam. You also then need to somehow connect it to the internet in order to stream directly off it. Like I say, like I've just shown, you can feed it into OBS and stream off OBS, but you can also stream directly out of the ATEM Mini Pro. In order to do that, you need you've got two options. If you've got a MacBook, MacBooks can do internet sharing, which is available in the sharing settings. You've also got situations where you would use a network switch, which can be seen here. What this does is it takes wired internet ports, known as Ethernet ports, using Cat5 cable, all of these words you may have heard. What they do is you take your internet connection straight from your router or some sort of AP or however you want to run it. You run that into the switch, you then run a Cat5 cable into the back of your ATEM and a Cat5 cable into your show machine, and then you can connect directly to the internet from that. So those are your sort of two options with how to do that. If you've got a Windows machine, the easiest way to make it work is to use a little 8-port switch. They're only about £30. Netgear ones are fine, TP-Link ones are fine in these situations. You only need an unmanaged one. We don't need to worry about what that means, managed versus unmanaged, but you can just get an unmanaged 8-port switch and it'll do the job really nicely for you. So these are just a couple of notes I realised as I was putting this video together. The ATEM Mini Pro is a really powerful bit of kit, but it's realistically used for streaming more than anything else. In order to use the preview out, to get that preview screen we saw, you need to have that as the dedicated HDMI out, and then you stream directly using either the USB or the built-in encoder. In order to have, say, it streaming and showing in your church at the same time, you have to run it through another PC, which can add quite a bit of latency and a noticeable delay between the audio and the video if you're using your church sound desk. So just be aware of this. This is really a piece of streaming kit rather than sort of like a proper... it doesn't have a dedicated preview out and a HDMI show out. So just be aware of that, but that might not be a problem for you. The other limitation of it is that it doesn't have like a headphone out, so you can't automatically track what audio is going through it. You just have the lines on screen. So in order to find that out, the easiest way is to use one of these. It's a HDMI audio extractor. This one is literally one you can get off Amazon for like 20 quid. What it does is you take your HDMI in, which is the preview out of the ATEM Mini Pro. You then power it just off a USB, you plug your headphones in, and you then take the HDMI out and then put it into your screen. This separates the audio from the ATEM, but only going to that preview monitor, so it doesn't affect the audio in your stream. But what it does do is it allows you to hear what's going on, so that you know what is going through the stream at that time, so you can track what's going on, and it also will help you match up any syncing issues you've got. We know we spoke about that delay, so it helps you sync up that audio nicely. So I hope that's useful for you. So that was our look at the more advanced options you've got for live streaming. Now I hope that's covered all bases for you. Also, my email address will be at the end of this video. If you have any quick questions that you need sorting out and you've got sort of a specific answer you can't find, feel free to drop me an email. But also, if your church needs slightly more substantial help, if you need me to come in and set up things for you or do tutorials specific to your church, my services are available for that on a consultancy basis. Again, just use that email address and I'll be perfectly happy to have that initial meeting with you. The initial meeting is free, and hopefully we can come to a solution for you that helps you take your live streaming to the next level. Now I hope you've enjoyed this video, I hope it's answered all your questions, and thank you very much for watching.